Namaste. So we are often appalled by the world situation and world condition, and everybody is wondering what will happen, what should be done. More important question is there something we can do about it? So we have all these sometimes nice write-ups, people repeating the same rhetorics, if I may say so. But is there a way? Now let's come to what is the way Mother has suggested. When things are bad or bad to worse, what is the way that we should take? This is a very beautiful passage of the Mother, and this is in 1957. This is 7th August 1957, and it is after the supramental manifestation. So she finds that the governments are resisting the supramental influence. The Mother said that two things are going to resist the most: the political world and the financial world. These are two strongholds of the Asura. The first is about power, the second is about money. And these 2 points just don't yield. Power, ambition, lust for power, control, domination. And the second is money, greed for money. So she says, very beautiful, this is the situation. It has grown considerably worse since the last war. It grows worse year by year, and one finds oneself in such a ridiculous situation that, unfortunately, as one is at the end of one's resources, to simplify what has been made so complicated, there is an idea in the earth atmosphere, an idea which might be called preposterous, but unhappily it is much worse than preposterous. It is catastrophic. So, what is the idea? We should be very careful not to harbor this idea. That's what Mother is reminding us, that there is a not just a preposterous idea, but a catastrophic idea. Now, idea is the power. Whatever, even children understand. Today, a child of 10, I asked him, is dream real or unreal? He said, it is true. I said, how? Correct, but how? He said, because what we dream and think and imagine, we tend to do it sometimes. So, in the domain of ideas, this is the power of idea. In one place, Sri Aurobindo even says the strength of the idea. He says, we develop plans and want to have this plan, that plan. He says, don't do all that. Then you are making a very rigid approach towards life. Keep hold on to the idea. And planning, etc., be flexible, be plastic. It will develop. Hold on to the idea that you conceive as the highest. And things will develop, instruments will develop, planning will automatically happen. But the idea is important. So what is the preposterous idea, which is catastrophic, much worse than preposterous, it is catastrophic. The idea that if there were a great upheaval, perhaps it would be better afterwards. Idea that better to have pralaya, better humanity destroys itself. Better to have Kali's dance. First thing she will do is dance over our head. Please don't invite. It is never a good thing. Well, if it happens, divine brings out the good out of the worst. That is a different thing altogether. But destruction of the world. You see, there were movies from 2000, the new millennium which started. What were the movies? Apocalypse, Ice Age. All ideas went suddenly very morbid. And one of them, I don't remember, was it the Ice Age, where they saw actually now in trying to, global warming, all this is true. But that whole idea was so morbid. That whole humanity is dying, and even India was shown, and unfortunately Pondicherry. So, it was a sign that there is something sinister about the movie. In the movie, you actually see that this is the shore where, and last one couple, one Indian scientist who apparently predicted this is going to happen and is happening, and all of them are vanishing. And there is a spacecraft in which people are going. Remember, I have forgotten I think it was about 2020. 2012. And this prediction about 2020 also, that's something. So all these ideas actually create a problem. In the world, we think it is just an idea, but in the world of ideas, it is real. And it has a power to press upon us. So she says, it is a catastrophic idea. One is so jammed between prohibitions, impossibilities, interdictions, rules, the complications of every second, that one feels stifled and really gets the admirable idea that if everything were demolished, perhaps it would be better afterwards. It is in the air. And all the governments have put themselves in such impossible conditions. They have become so tied up that it seems to them they will have to break everything to be able to move forward. Mother is also receiving that idea. It is there in the air. For instance, today we talk about world is one family and human unity and all that. Big people talk about all this. Try traveling from one country to another and see. There also, you will get visa if you belong to a certain country which is allied to that. What is this kind? This is another kind of hegemony, which is so strange. Then you will get visa depending on what is your money status. If you're not earning, if you are from the ashram and say, I just want to travel, I've heard your country is very nice, I want to travel and see the place. Where is the money? Do you have the money to go? It may sound very practical, but where is all? We are very far from, how nice if some country says, takes an interview and says, okay, we are glad, welcome, come, see it. After you have done that much check, he is not going to be a nuisance. Be a guest of honor. I mean, it can go to any extent. But leaving aside these fantastic imagination, at least the feeling of being welcome, simply because you are a world citizen. You're very far from that. So, she says, it is in the air, and all the governments have put themselves in such impossible conditions. They become so tied up that it seems to them they will have to break everything to be able to move forward. This is unfortunately a little more than a possibility. It is a very serious threat. We see it is happening. She's talking of 57. We can take it, another 65 years forward. And if you look at all around India, near impossible situation. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Bangladesh, ठीक है, but moving toward that. Nepal, Russia, Ukraine, China, countries under strange situations. Somehow India is so far steering nicely. I mean, it's difficult to understand. Only God is saving, not only saving but growing. It's actually, one can see it. These are factual things. Regardless of anything else you may judge, but some power is really, working too. But if you really look all around, look at the scenario, just imagine the pain of somebody in Sri Lanka and you can't do anything. You are there and you just can't do anything. You can't go and grab the government people and change. And even if you change, they have done things which are not going to be easy to be wiped off. Look at the condition in Pakistan. Of course, Ukraine, Russia, all around. This is the situation. Because the governments have put themselves in such impossible state. And it is not quite certain that life will not be made still more impossible because one feels incapable of emerging from the chaos. The chaos of complications in which humanity has put itself by turning away from the straight path of the divine. Instead we have cut the divine into various sections, religions, ideologies, this, that, 100 complications. And there are active, hostile beings who want to destroy anything that is sacred, anything that belongs to the divine, or reduce him to a fixed, narrow, one-sided formula. And they find support in millions of people. This is the condition of the earth. It is like the shadow, but unfortunately a very active shadow of the new hope which has sprung up in the human consciousness. The new hope is 29th February 1956. So it is the very contradiction has come like a shadow. A hope and a need for something more harmonious, and the need becomes so much more acute as life, as it is at present organized, becomes more and more contrary to it. The two opposites are facing each other with such intensity that one can expect something like an explosion. Two opposites. On one side, the hope of a new world. On the other side, and now with piled up nuclear arsenal, the threat perception, the suspiciousness, the fears. I am not going to say from where is all this emanating. The world knows. What are the hubs of this kind of polluting the human consciousness? One also knows where is the hope, where things can be regenerated. And these are things to be seen, even if, blind person can see what's happening in the world. And then after a silence, Mother says something very interesting. This is the condition of the earth, and it is not very bright. Looks like she is speaking today. But for us, one possibility remains. Mother, what should we do? Should we start a referendum? Should we start a campaign? I've spoken about it to you several times already. Even if outside things are deteriorating completely and the catastrophic cannot possibly be avoided, there remains for us, those for whom the supramental life is not a vain dream, handful of people, doesn't matter. Those who have faith in its reality and the aspiration to realize it. For them, she is now saying specifically, for those for whom it's not a vain dream, there are people who say, yes, we have heard about it. Who knows? We don't know. And they are still involved with the old life, the old consciousness, hoping some strange miracle to happen. She's not addressing to those. Those for whom supramental life is a certainty. They have this faith. And then she specifies, I don't necessarily mean those who have gathered here in Pondicherry, in the ashram, but those who have as a link between them the knowledge Sri Aurobindo has given and the will to live according to that knowledge. That's all that is required. What a beautiful thing to read approaching the 150th year. One is they are ready to open to that teaching, meaning thereby at least read it. If not, at least hear what Mother and Sri Aurobindo have said. And then the will to live according to that teaching. It's no point just reading a teaching if one doesn't have the will to live according to that. And this is what I feel, that it's a moment of choice. When a choice is being given to people. And she has specified, it's nothing to do with Pondicherry Ashram, that those who are here. Other days, someone was mentioning that, even here sometimes, there are people who teach things like Babar Nama and, stuff like, wonderful Mughal rule and all these things. Whereas Rama was, I wouldn't use the word, I can't use the word actually. It is so. So when someone was telling me that, students were being taught this, I said, has the person not read what Sri Aurobindo has written about Rama? Just read Dilip Kumar Roy's letter. And I was told, yes. But the person looks at it from the complete, that so-called left liberal feminist point of view, that he did something wrong. I can understand people who have not read and who have not understood. But somebody who is open to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, if you have read the foundations of Indian culture, forget that, just 3-4 letters, Dilip Kumar Roy, what he wrote about Rama. Even if your heart is closed entirely. So while being here, you may still be under the large formation of that kind of thought which denies God's reality, which denies avatarhood's possibility, which actually in a way opposes a new world by falling back upon the old ideas based on our so-called, this humanity is there. So she's saying, I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to those to whom supramental world is not a vain dream. Just focus for that. So, and it is nothing to do with where you live. There remains for them, because it's no point reading Sri Aurobindo the mother and then saying, I have my own ideas which I have gathered from, Marxist theory of political theory, and actually it has no meaning. It's better than to follow that way of life and be where this ideology is promoted. Ideally, what's the point of mixing things? I remember once when I had just joined the Air Force and I met a pilot and he wanted to go into commercial transport. So I asked him, but why you're so nice in Air Force? He says, I wanted to become fighter pilot, because if you have to be in Air Force, you must be in its teeth. But for some reason he was downgraded and he couldn't, so he is doing that, normal commercial, not commercial, the other transport pilot. He says, then I might as well go into the commercial pilot thing. Of course, I don't agree, because you're still serving the country. But if you believe in something, then follow it. Try to follow it. Forget about following is a big word, but at least try to follow it, however little. So she's saying, I'm addressing them. There remains for them the possibility of intensifying their aspiration, their will, their effort to gather their energies together and shorten the time for the realization. Realization is bound to be. What we can do, we can compress time, that's all. So she is not asking us to do very big things outside. She is not asking us to convert people to become a pracharak or even engage into a war of ideologies. She is just asking us, intensify your aspiration. Doesn't matter what is your background. To gather their energies together and shorten the time for the realization. To be focused on the new world, the new creation. There remains for them the possibility of working this miracle individually and to a small extent collectively. Of conquering space, duration, the time needed for this realization. Of replacing time by intensity of effort. She is giving us the secret of time management. Actually, people often say we are running short of time. It's not true. If there is a will, one will find the time. Somehow you will find the time. But if we value something, it depends on what we value. If we value it, we will find the time. Somehow or the other, take for instance, if you want to follow the yoga, you will bring in that attitude everywhere. Because you have no choice. You are like a fish who is gasping for breath. So what will you do? You can't change outer circumstances, but you will change yourself inside. This is within us. So, intensifying the effort. So, she says, what happens with this? Of replacing time by intensity of effort and going fast. Now, this intensity of effort has nothing to do with cutting off from the world. Repeatedly, it has to do with attitudes. Adopting the right attitude, aspiration. Not going into sackcloths and despairs and blaming and complaining. Not that. But be focused. And going fast enough and far enough in the realization to liberate themselves from the consequences of the present condition of the world. She is hinting. Later on she would say part of humanity will collapse. So she is asking us, look, don't belong to that which is dying. Belong to that which is going to live forever. That's all she is asking us. So don't engage in that which is going to die. People may say that you are being selfish. It's not true. Because once you activate this solution within yourself, then you can naturally radiate it to the world. Otherwise, we'll be like blind men leading the blind. That's how the world is. And Upanishad says very clearly that when the blind lead the blind, what happens? Both fall into the ditch. Some people will say, oh, this is very cool. You want to intensify effort, aspiration. You're not bothered about what's happening in the world. Well, as if by being bothered, we can do things in our present state of ignorance. Mankind has tried all that for millenniums. But now there is a possibility. She's saying there is a possibility, condition. And she's asking an individual effort and to an extent collective to conquer space, time. Space could be a virtual space where we just bring in this beauty and of the new creation and ways and means to go toward that. of making such a concentration of force, strength, light, truth, that by this very realization they can be above these consequences and secure against them, enjoy the protection bestowed by the light and truth, by purity, the divine purity through the inner transformation, and that the storm may pass over the world without being able to destroy this great hope of the near future. To harbor that faith, hope, not to give in to all the voices. You see what happened during Corona time? You could see humanity into two. One that continued to believe in the old ways, another which was looking for a new way, which actually had complete faith in what Mother and Sri Aurobindo have said. And they may be regarded as, people who are too simplistic, who are, sentimental. But she is asking us that it's a courage, it's not being sentimental, it's about the courage that one has to leap toward the future. She says, blessed are those who take a leap toward the future. So what is needed is, because she says consequences will come, it's not about today and tomorrow. And even nations, they may hide their misdeeds. It may look very nice that, is very nice. But something is there which needs to go. And the divine will find ways and means to do it. Even at a national level. We can't hide. This is, regarded as the time when Shani is ruling from the standpoint of, what is Shani? Is the god of justice. You try to hide things, putting up a nice facade, you'll be hit. And you can't know. And only those who keep God in their hearts, they are safe. They will also be hit, but they will go through it. Protection, under protection. So that's what she is saying. And that the storm may pass over the world without being able to destroy this great hope of the near future. That the tempest may not sweep away this beginning of realization. Of course, this is the time when Cuban crisis, all this was taking place. When the world was just one button away from a nuclear war. She knew it. She told this. Even now. Instead of falling asleep in an easy quietude and letting things happen according to their own rhythm, zindagi hai, chal rahi hai, let it go its own way. If one strains to the utmost one's will, ardor, aspiration, and springs up into the light, then one can hold one's head higher. One can have in a higher region of consciousness enough room to live, to breathe, to grow and develop above the passing cyclone. So when storms come, there are only three things you can do. First is the most foolish, say that I am going to fight the cyclone. Second is, bow down, close your eyes, sit till the storm passes, endure the process. It will pass. I have actually experienced that in Yamuna, in Kanpur, when the storm, in Agra, when the whole storm came and it was terrible. So everybody just held their hands and just sat. I still remember that scene, closing the eyes, calling God. After some time, that time you don't know. Of course, the elders told nothing, it will pass away. So we lived by that. No, we are not going to be flown away. But that time you feel, who knows? Because everything becomes blinded. You can't open the eye even little. So constantly everybody was saying, don't open the eyes, don't open the eyes. It was like completely dark, suddenly, that kind of thing. But after half an hour, it began to abate. Then after some time, then you get up and then you feel very good, you have survived. Nothing would happen. But, it's a great experience that when cyclone comes, that's the attitude. Endure with faith. Third is to rise above the cyclone. This is for the strong, the best. To rise into the light, then nothing will touch. You will see from above cyclone is passing through. This is possible. In a very small way, this was already done during the last war when Sri Aurobindo was here. She's speaking of the Second World War. It can be done again. And we may add again and again and again. It must be done. Because several such things will come. They are bound to come. The darkness is not going to suddenly, that Asura falsehood told Mother, I am going to create as much chaos. I know eventually the victory is going to be yours. but I am going to. So he'll try several ways. The last battles are the most prolonged. But every time, few people who cross over, who stand firm upon faith, and they don't listen to the voices of the darkness and the night and start believing in all that, then it's a conquest step forward. It can be done again, but one must want it. And each one must do his own work as sincerely and completely as he can. This is the solution. And the deeper side of the problem, it will come taking different forms. And it will happen at national level. If the leaders are insincere, it will happen. It requires the leaders to be tremendously sincere. Otherwise, cyclones will come at a national level. And naturally, when it happens at a national level, then individuals are involved unwittingly. Yet even then, the individuals can still focus only on the new creation. This is anyways going to die, this old world. And death is a rebirth. It has to rejuvenate itself. So let us focus on the coming dawn and rather intensify the effort. If we see that darkness is becoming denser and denser, it means cry more and more for light. Namaste.